New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio giving the go-ahead for Black Lives Matter protesters to continue marching through the streets of New York, despite the city banning mass gatherings through September over coronavirus concerns.
This is a historic moment of change. We have to respect that, but also say to people, the kinds of gatherings we're used to, the parades, the fairs, we just can't have that while we're focusing on health right now.
Mayor de Blasio yesterday joined activists in painting the words Black Lives Matter in big yellow letters on Fifth Avenue just outside Trump Tower. President Trump fired back in an interview with our own Sean Hannity last night. Here's a bit.
The New York police, New York's finest, they're just not being allowed to do their job. They don't want to do anything because they'll end up with lots of bad things happening to them. I was very nice to Mayor de Blasio. I got him ventilators when he needed them. I got him hospital help when he needed it. I spoke to him many times. He couldn't have been nicer. And then he throws a big Black Lives Matter sign right down in the middle of Fifth Avenue, and all merchants along Fifth Avenue are furious.
You're watching Outnumbered on this fine Friday. I'm Harris Faulkner, here today Town Hall editor and Fox News contributor Katie Pavlich, attorney and Fox News contributor Emily Compagno, former Ohio Senate Democratic Minority Leader Capri Cafaro, and in the center seat, host of The Next Revolution, Steve Hilton. Steve, I'll start with you. We are seeing a collision of ideas on how to move forward.
We are, and it's not the kind of revolution I think most people want to see. On this action by de Blasio, the things he's been saying, it's offensive on so many levels, but I just want to pick two. First of all, on large gatherings, just imagine how that sounds when he says, we've got to stop everything except these protests, to those people who've had to miss funerals with their loved ones over the past few months, because that's the kind of gathering that the mayor won't allow. How offensive that is to those people. And then look at his PR stunt yesterday on Fifth Avenue. We've seen a lot of examples over the past few weeks and months of what's been described as performative wokeness. Stunts and symbols and superficial things that actually don't change anything in the real world. This, however, is a particularly sickening example of that. While he's painting Black Lives Matter on that particular street in New York, you literally have black people dying on the mayor's streets in New York because of his failures over policing. I'm all for police reform. I've made that argument over and over again. Sensible police reform, that's needed. What we don't need is police retreat, because that means more people will be killed, including black people, and that's what's happening on his watch. It is totally shameful.
Emily?
That's exactly right what Steve said. I echo, this is ineffectiveness and simple incompetence at its best. Those city residents right now are suffering with shootings up 130%, homicides up 30%, and yet arrests down 40,000 this year. Why? Because their mayor is more interested in photo ops and virtue signaling rather than rolling up his sleeves and actually getting things done. All of those factors are interrelated, and you can't message and virtue signal on the left without supporting every juncture of law enforcement, both conceptually and rank and file. There we are seeing a silent scream of those residents in New York City, and I'm sitting in Seattle where there's a similar rot, and the feeling that I feel around me when I leave my home is one of despair, complete frustration and depletion of these residents in their local leadership, and it's certainly echoed there in incompetent Mayor de Blasio.
Wow. And when you say virtue signaling, Capri, I come to you because it does feel like that. You know, don't mass gather unless you politically agree with one side over the other. Don't mass gather. Just completely capitulate to what science has shown us is not a good idea to mass gather, especially if we're not wearing masks. You know, don't give in to any of that unless, of course, it fits a narrative by this mayor. So he'll tell some yes and some absolutely no. What do you do with that as a Democrat?
Right. Well, I mean, there's obviously some cognitive dissonance here because, as you just mentioned, Harris, on one hand, he's basically creating a situation where he's saying it's okay to do this one thing, but ignore the rest of it. Either you're for preventing the spread or you're not. Now, you can still be for preventing the spread and also supporting the advocacy work that's being done on behalf of raising our voices in regards to racial injustice and what we've seen over the last several months. But you can't say both of these things of sit at home except for this one issue. Now, let me say one more thing, because Emily said photo op. I agree with this. He's out there with the Black Lives Matter thing, but what we're not seeing from Bill de Blasio, who claims to be a progressive, even though I don't use the moniker progressive, but here's the thing. The NYPD has a lot of baggage right now. While I support the police, if Bill de Blasio is out there saying he supports the Black Lives Matter movement and he cares about police reform and he wants to talk about these things, he has done absolutely nothing, as far as I'm aware, in engaging with the NYPD and addressing some of the issues that we saw of cops running into crowds during the big protests in June. So put your money where your mouth is, not with your paintbrush on Fifth Avenue.
Wow. And on the heels of that, Katie, I come to you, the Attorney General of New York today calling for Bill de Blasio to stay out of, adjudicating and moving forward and managing the New York Police Department.
Well, the police haven't had confidence in Bill de Blasio for a number of years now, and it's true. Instead of actually focusing and working with the police on limiting crime and actually saving people's lives in New York City, Bill de Blasio is engaging in the ultimate virtue signaling, which means he's making himself feel really good while actually doing nothing at all and getting rid of some kind of guilt that he feels while actually not solving any kind of problem. He thinks science only applies when it's politically convenient for him. If you look at the people he has gone after and lectured over and over again about not mass gathering, religious people, for example, when people wanted to go to religious funerals or wanted to hold religious services on the weekends, Bill de Blasio was the first one to go after them and to target them for breaking the rules. But in this instance, he is totally fine with it. And the last thing is, how many, at a time when the police are stretched so thin, when they've just had $1 billion cut from their budget, how much did it cost the taxpayer yesterday for Bill de Blasio to have his photo op, to shut down the streets, to paint the streets for his own security in that situation? How much did that cost, and how many police officers were unable to respond to real phone calls and real emergencies because they were busy with Bill de Blasio on Fifth Avenue?
Great questions. And you know what, Katie? I'm going to sit right here with you with more of those questions. So here's one that I had. You're going to need some police out there when you have your mass gatherings. Who are you going to call? 911? Right. You're going to set that up through a permit situation. You're going to expect the men and women in blue to show up. Look, nobody is arguing that there isn't work that needs to be done, but their work that needs to be done as they're about to be mass gatherings, as the mayor has said, well, we know what that work is, and we're going to need those cops.
Well, and isn't he putting the police at risk by having them work at these big mass gatherings that he is now justifying as a result of politics? I mean, those police officers now have to go into a crowded group of people because the mayor believes it is important and an efficient use of their time. And the other question, Harris, is, okay, so how far does this go with Bill de Blasio and the things that he chooses are okay to mass gather for and the things that he thinks are not okay? So, for example, 9/11 is coming up. Is he going to ban mass gatherings to remember the terrorist attacks that happened in New York City on 9/11? I would hope not, but his standard seems to be one that is politically convenient for him.
Capri? The governor of the great state of New York called for displacing Mayor de Blasio. Maybe now people are getting a flavor of why that could be.
Well, I'll tell you this. There are not a lot of Democrats, frankly, that are fans of Mayor Bill de Blasio in New York and outside of New York, because essentially he tries to pander to everybody. And as a result of that, he's gotten absolutely nothing done. He said he was going to be, take on big real estate, and then he capitulated to big real estate. He wants to try to pretend to be nice to the police, but at the same time is ignoring them. He's talking about Black Lives Matter, but then not addressing the underlying issues that the Black Lives Matter movement is calling for. There's a long-standing feud between Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio, and Andrew Cuomo always makes sure that he flexes and lets BDB, as we call him, know who's boss. Anytime he says, oh, we're going to make this decision for New York City, Andrew Cuomo says, not so fast. The decision lies with me as the governor. So, hopefully, ultimately, I want to make sure that the people in New York are safe and healthy.
Yeah, well, we all want that. So you mentioned Bill de Blasio's desire to engage with big real estate. He kind of did that, Steve Hilton, because he painted or helped paint BLM outside of all of those businesses. And, you know, the reporting today in this area is that there are merchants who are just concerned about a whole host of things with those letters out there, because you now have people on the sidewalk who are willing to argue with each other about what they mean. Look, conversation important, but they're just getting their doors back open. That's a big real estate along Fifth Avenue.
Yeah, and it's just another example of this mayor and Democrats generally, this new generation, who are just totally cavalier and casual about the market economy. They just don't understand or appreciate or respect in any way people who are trying to make a living, do the right thing, give jobs to people, give a service to customers. They think that's all just totally unimportant compared to what they do in the government. And you see it reflected right across the Democratic Party, right across the country now, and it's really damaging.